All right. Hello, people of YouTube land, and those that follow Ted and I on Twitch, and those that are part of the Cringe Crew Gaming Community Discord. I am Traductus.
And I'm Ted.
And this is the Cringe Crew Gaming James Bond podcast, where I, a Bond fan, show Ted, a newbie to the series, the James Bond films, and we talk about them, with me having a fan perspective and Ted from having a new person perspective, a casual viewer perspective. And today, we are here to explain us Dancing into the Fire with 1985's A View to a Kill. All right. How we normally go through this, background of the film, likes and dislikes, overview, and rankings. So, as I said before, made in 1985. Again, directed by John Glenn, because this is a Bond film of the 80s, and he directs all the ones in the 80s. Had a budget of $30 million, and got a box office of $152.4 million. So, nice chunk of change, but made less than Octopussy. So this is the first time where 3 movies in a row, they made less than their previous Bond films, with For Your Eyes Only making less than Moonraker for some fucking reason.
The promise of space, Stallman. It's the promise of space.
And Octopussy not making as much as For Your Eyes Only, since it had competition. And then this film, despite having Christopher Walken and someone who was actually very popular at the time, Grace Jones, this failed to make as much money as a movie called Octopussy.
Yeah.
We'll get into what's probably why is that. But that being said, all right, we're gonna go into some things of the production. By the way, the spoiler, the best part of this movie, Duran Duran does the theme music, and it's really awesome how Duran Duran became to have this theme music. The bass player of Duran Duran was drunk at a party, ran into Cubby Broccoli, and blatantly went up to him and goes, "When are you going to have someone good do a James Bond theme?" And Cubby Broccoli thought it was smug and was just like, "All right, then why don't you have a go with it?" And so Duran Duran worked with a John Barry, and they made the theme song, and this is the first time that the James Bond theme song made it to #1 on the Billboard charts. And for what I've known, as of this recording, it's the only one to do so. And I could see why, because the song slaps. What's also really cool is that the band and John Barry actually became really good friends. And after he passed, the band Duran Duran actually did a tribute to John Barry at Coachella in 2011, and they actually do a whole fucking medley of different James Bond themes, like Goldfinger, Diamonds Are Forever, and then they go right into fucking A View to a Kill, and it's beautiful. One of the best versions of the song, although I'd say the original is the best out of them all. But anyway, we have that out of the way, and we're gonna go right into cast. This is Roger Moore's last venture as James Bond. He was 57 during filming, and after finding out that he was older than his castmate's mother, he was like, "I am not doing another James Bond film. I am way too old for doing this. This is starting to get creepy, especially since the girls seem to get younger and younger."
Yep.
So kudos to him for that. This is also the last Bond film to have Lois Maxwell as Moneypenny. Since while they obviously cast a younger Bond. And the next movie, Living Daylights, they also cast, a younger person to play Moneypenny. So that way they had the same, age, they're around the same age. Returning is, as M is Robert Brown. And for, some more, interesting things about people that are returning. Maud Adams has a cameo as an extra in this movie. The lady that played Scaramega's girlfriend and then played Octopussy. She actually plays an extra in the background of the Fisherman's Wharf scene. There's a lot of speculation on whether she's actually in the film or if her scene was cut, because she is hard to spot if she's even there. But supposedly, she was vacationing with her husband in San Francisco, and since she was friends with Roger Moore, she's just like, "Hey, I'll just say hi to Roger." And then she showed up near the set, and they're like, "Hey, you want to be an extra?" She goes, "Sure, why not?" So she, ends up being an extra. Also cast is Patrick Mcnee as Sir Godfrey Tibbett, who is Bond's ally, one of Bond's allies in this film. Patrick Mcnee is best known for playing Secret Agent John Steed in the British television series The Avengers, which we have brought up before, with Honor Blackman being from that series, and same with Diana Rigg. So they're basically they're partners, since like the women kind of go through like a different revolving role. The person that they keep getting partnered with is the character that Patrick Mcnee plays. So he actually finally is in a Bond film. And I wish this was the last time we would reference the Avengers, and that is the Spy series, not the Marvel series. But there is one more connection, although not to the series, but to the shitty movie that was made in the 90s and 2000s. That's based off of the TV series. But I just figured I had to add that in to, keep some continuity of how there seems to be callbacks in casts from other movies and TV series that seem to be weirdly consistent. Also, shall we go with the villains? We have Grace Jones as Mayday, who is the henchwoman. And I didn't use this term before just because it just slipped past me. But Ted, are you familiar with the term the heavy when it comes to henchmen?
Nope.
Okay. What the heavy is typically in Bond movies, and it's also in other action films, is the villain that is really hard to beat up. The big bruiser type of character that's resistant to pain. Good examples would be Odd Job, Jaws, or in Die Hard, the blonde dude.
Yep.
That would be the heavy. And what's interesting about this is that Grace Jones, being a woman, is the heavy. So, that's pretty cool.
And significantly so by that description. She was all of the muscle. Yeah, all of the muscle.
And speaking of Grace Jones, and for those who don't know who Grace Jones is, she was a musician in the 80s and is also which is selling her short. She's basically a multimedia artist. She was a model. She was known for her androgynous appearance. She was basically huge and is a legend. And I wish I could really, really speak a lot of words to really describe it, because even me being, her being before my time, don't really grasp how big she was, but apparently she was really, really big.
Yeah,
however, the main
notable acting career, notable music career. You mentioned her modeling too. I mean, she was all over the place. Really, really big career in a lot of different facets.
And what's really funny is that due to him dating Grace Jones, Dolph Lundgren, the guy that plays Drago from Rocky IV, and also the Punisher in the original Punisher movie, made in the 80s. He's in this with a cameo as a KGB henchman because he showed up on set with Grace Jones, and they're just like, "Hey, you look like, a KGB guy, so we're just gonna cast you in there." And this was his first acting role.
And weirdly enough, before he was a human boulder. Like, his face is obviously recognizable if you're looking for him, but to be like, hey, do you know who that is? Like, no, it kind of looks vaguely like Dolph Lundgren, but human-sized. It notably different. If Stallman hadn't pointed it out, he would have looked familiar and we would have let it go. Like, that would have been it.
Yeah, I actually had to point it out. That's the funny thing. But thinking back, like them two dating, that's like the definition of power couple. As in, like, both being jacked as shit.
Emphasis on power, for sure.
Keeping with the villains, we have Christopher Walken as Max Zorin, who is, the main villain, industrialist, former member of the KGB, and spoiler alert, he is a Nazi genetic experiment.
Mm-hmm.
Because that does not get old for whatever reason.
Yeah, every bad guy that we don't like from now until the end of time will just be a Nazi in every film you ever watch. Just, we don't know how to talk about extremism without Nazis, so he's a Nazi.
Christopher Walken was actually the third choice in this. Originally, they asked David Bowie to play as with the role, and David Bowie declined because he didn't want to see his stunt double fall from a cliff like 10 times in a row. Yeah. And the role was then offered to Sting, who turned it down, and then Christopher Walken's just like, I guess he's like, I got nothing better to do. And here's the weird thing about Christopher Walken on this. He's not necessarily the caricature that we know him as. This was back when he was more of like a serious act, like, not that he's serious now, but more akin to like more serious roles. But the Walkenisms are there, and we'll get to that.
It's just his voice. The longer he speaks, the more you go, yep, Christopher Walken's hit his stride. He doesn't really have a whole lot of points and times that he just kind of rambles. There's a couple times he hits a paragraph, and you're like, it's Christopher Walken, isn't it?
Yes. And we're gonna have like a couple more Bond's allies here. Before we get to, we're gonna save the Bond woman for last. Just because I have a question for Ted, because I didn't really prepare this a hell of a lot.
Wouldn't be us if it weren't a little bit scuffed.
Yeah. David Yip as Chuck Lee. What movie did you think he was in?
I don't remember. I remember saying it, and I remember. He looks exactly like the guy in Christopher Nolan's Batman movies in The Dark Knight. He was the guy speaking for the rest of the table of the mobsters as you get introduced to the Joker. Okay,
well, guess what? Wait, maybe I should go to IMDb instead of Wikipedia.
I'm telling you, they looked exactly alike. You know what scene I'm talking about, though?
I know exactly what scene. Yeah. Dark Knight, David Yip.
They're not the same guy. I'm going to be very disappointed.
No, but David Yip was in Temple of Doom.
Okay. I'm telling you, they looked exactly alike.
I mean, a lot of actors look alike, so, because you've been telling me that Christopher fucking Walken looks like a less methed out, like,
Willem Dafoe. Yeah.
Willem
If you
Dafoe, yeah.
if you just add like a 6-month really hard meth addiction to Christopher Walken, you get Willem Dafoe. I refuse to hear otherwise. Not like a long-term meth habit, just like really hard for 6 months. Telling you, like,
I disagree, but
whatever.
it's still a hilarious thing to hear. And anyway, for the main Bond woman, Stacy Sutton, is played by Tonya Roberts, who is known for being in the season of Charlie's Angels with the role of Julie Rogers. She's also known for being in the movie Sheena,
And
as she
Donna's
plays
mom. Donna's mom and
yes,
that 70s
Midge
show.
Midge Pinciotti.
Pinciotti.
Pinciotti, yeah, there we go. That's how you pronounce that. Yes. And that 70s show. And she was also in the movie The Beastmaster. And here's the thing. I've seen obviously that 70s show. I've seen Sheeta, like Queen of the Jungle and The Beastmaster. I haven't seen those two movies since like I was in middle school. But I will say this, they were very, very cheap. And that will come later when we talk about her in this movie during likes and dislikes. But I think that's good for cast. I mean, there's Willoughby Gray, who was like an English stage and street actor who plays like the Nazi scientist that created Zorin. That's literally all I got anymore, because anything else, like, it's people that come back, like Walter Kittel as General Gogol and Desmond Llewellyn as Q, of course. Oh, there is one more thing. This was some of this was filmed in San Francisco, and the mayor of San Francisco at the time, not the person that plays the mayor in this movie, the actual mayor of San Francisco at this time, she is now a senator, she's now a senator, if I remember, Dianne Feinstein.
I'll take your word for it.
Shit. She's like pro tempore now, I think.
Ah, well.
But anyway, she was
she's a senator now.
Yeah, she's a senator now, still in there. She was mayor of San Francisco, and she was a huge fan of the James Bond series, so therefore, like, they got the permits to do this rather, like, just like that, and rather cheaply, and actually allowed them to film inside the actual city hall. So that was really cool. Also, there was some obvious cost cutting for sure, although there's hints of it in the movie, but some of the shots of the blimp, like Zorin's like blimp, are shots of the Fujifilm blimp, because they were just like, hey, since it's flying in the air anyway, they asked the Fujifilm people if they could just use, shoot it for like test footage, and then realized like, hey, the blimp that we have, we could like totally paint the colors to look like the Fujifilm blimp, and we could use the test footage from the Fujifilm blimp, thus saving money. And hearing that, when we go into likes and dislikes, which will be next, we can see cost cutting was a factor, obviously. So, with that being said, likes and dislikes. Who wants to go first? And are we doing likes first or dislikes next, or are we just combining them?
I'll start first, and I'll just start with likes because it's a pretty short list. I'll be honest that most of my notes were negatives. But the one thing that, like, okay, so Stallman was hyping this movie up for me for a week. And it wasn't until we started watching the movie that I realized he gave me nothing of substance when he was praising this movie. It was, hey, Duran and Christopher Walken.
And Grace Jones. That's all I was hyping. I wasn't hyping the movie itself. You're like...
I didn't realize how little substance it had until we actually, like, were halfway through the movie. I was like, oh, I guess that is all he said, isn't it? Stallman mentioned earlier, Duran was really good. It was definitely different than most of the other Bond themes. It took a while to break into where it became a really good tune, but it was good. I thought Christopher Walken was really fantastic in this movie. I didn't think his part was as big as it probably could have been, which sounds weird.
I agree. There wasn't enough cowbell. Or what I mean by that, as in not enough Christopher Walken.
He said at the beginning of this, he's like, I'm so proud of us for not making any cowbell jokes and found the first opportunity. No, I genuinely, I didn't think he got a whole lot of screen time. There wasn't a ton of talking opportunities, and I didn't think that the way that the movie was written gave him a whole lot of opportunity to build his character. But honestly, I thought his acting was notably very good. He definitely hit a stride and made you feel comfortable with him as a villain and not just seeing him as less methed Willem Dafoe. I also will say, if you watched the episode from the Battle of the Bonds, we kind of talked about how watching View to a Kill before filming that bonus episode was kind of influenced what we talked about then. To bring it back full circle, I very much liked the way that in the previous two movies, both of them elected to break the standard Bond format and tell stories in a different way. And I think probably for the first time, they actually learned from the previous movie. View to a Kill definitely took from Octopussy in that it wasn't just here's the bad guy, kill him. And while it was closer to that, it definitely took a while where you were kind of confused about the plot, and then they wrapped it back to give you the answers and make you understand why Bond was, against the bad guys. I thought they took more thorough and developed plot lines, learning from the last movie, and brought it into this one, which I thought was notably pretty cool.
Yeah, I agree. Even though it takes forever to kind of get there, because just to kind of have a little bit, I guess, go into criticisms. The plot of A View to a Kill doesn't necessarily happen until halfway into the movie.
Yep.
The first half is getting us there, which is, but that's all I have to add to that before getting into my stuff. But
how about it?
I'm just wait. Oh, you don't have more?
No, about it.
Oh, all right. I will actually say this: Christopher Walken, some of his Walkenness mannerisms are really great. The little quirks, especially different reactions, when Bond basically covers sneaking out, as in he snuck out because he wanted to sleep with Mayday, and then his little I'd be fucking damned.
Yeah.
He just does a head nod, and then he does it a head nod again when Roger Moore's James Bond just basically tells him it's well, your creator would be proud, and he's just you're not wrong. And he doesn't say that, but he conveys that with just a head, with just the walking Christopher Walken head nod, and it's just
very much in character.
And it works. There's a few things that I think are pretty amazing. This is, I guess, this isn't really a positive. It's a negative that turns into a positive because it's kind of amusing. Typically, Bond, when he pisses off the Bond villain to blow his cover, on purpose to get more information. It's all in previous films. This is perceived to be done on purpose, and this it just seems like he's kind of bad at his job. And there's numerous times where he especially when he's spying with the glasses and stuff like that. It's so what are you doing? He goes, "Oh, I'm having a great time, just staring at a wall." And it's he just makes it so like obvious, but like acts like he's trying not to make it obvious. And I kind of get a chuckle on that because to me, I'm just like, I'm not sure if this was done on purpose or not, just to kind of like have like fun with it, but I still kind of like it. Also, like Walken, how he like interacts with Bond, like he sees Bond like talking to Stacy, and he just tells Mayday, it's like, it's not so much like, hey, go split them up. It's like, get him away from her.
Yeah.
Also, Grace Jones, Grace Jones and Christopher Walken basically steal this film, much like Gertfrobe and Harold Sadaka steal Goldfinger, and this is very much like a stealthy Goldfinger remake. Instead of gold, it's microchips. With this, and Grace Jones's Mayday is very imposing. She actually has quite a bit of character for what she is given.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like every scene that she's in, she kind of just like steals it, especially with like Christopher Walken as well. Like, it's like you see like some like normal just exposition scene, and you have like Christopher Walken just being a weirdo, and then Grace Jones with like this extravagant outfit, and you're just like, what's the plot? I don't give a shit about what the plot is. Fuck the plot. Like, this is great.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Grace Jones more so than Christopher Walken, but like, she did not have the ability to be a background character in any scene that she was in. There was reason for her being there, and if there wasn't, she made it so there was a reason for her being there. Like, she was very, very present through this movie.
Absolutely. Also, to me, I really, for the most part, like the climax of this movie, because there is a fight on the Golden Gate Bridge. It gets undermined later, but like the fight between Christopher Walken and Roger Moore is rather solid and honestly rather realistic. Because
I guess, like, I thought the fight was well choreographed, right?
right.
It felt like a good climax to the movie that we saw, but there were just some parts that just didn't quite fit the mold, and like, you could very clearly tell it was they stuck a pipe in a room somewhere and then added a green screen behind it, kind of thing.
Well,
like, there wasn't a whole lot of, you never got the suspense of being at the top of the bridge like you would with, say, a Mission Impossible movie, right?
Right.
But like, I mean, for what the movie was, I agree that the climax was good. They definitely ruined it for themselves at the end, and there was some sense of pseudo realism, but I mean, overall, it wasn't awful.
Yeah, I think that like the concept is that Christopher Walken as a villain seems to kind of like learn from his mistakes a little bit. He's just all right. He seems to like at first when he tries to kill Bond, he like knocks him out, puts him in a car to drown in the car. Bond escapes. He's like, all right, well, here's that. All right, I'm gonna lock you in an elevator with like a whole bunch of thing, and set a building on fire. This is a lot more secure than just a car that I didn't lock or anything. He escapes. Then he actually has to deal with Bond, while they're fighting on the Golden Gate Bridge, and he's like, all right, I'm actually gonna do this myself. He grabs an axe and tries to freaking hack him to death with an axe. And I'm like, finally, like, a James Bond villain's like, I'm not gonna. It's like, all right, even though it's not egregious, as in like, oh, I'm gonna give Bond all these attempts to escape, they're like really practical ways of kind of disposing somebody, keeping it, under the radar. But at the end, he's like, all right, I don't have a gun. Here's the next best thing. I'm just gonna like do what I should have done beforehand and actually just slaughter the dude.
And I give the more so the character, the writer, more credit. Like after the first attempt trying to drown him in the car, where it was the same kind of okay, just every reason to not kill the good guy, right? Like they also got justification from the KGB about, like, hey, we didn't give you permission to kill James Bond, right? So he has to be kind of sly about it, like the burning building, right?
Yeah.
So there's some credit as to he's still actively trying to kill James Bond in the way he has the most permission to do so, which I like. There's some credit there that I wouldn't have extended to previous villains.
Absolutely, especially not
What's his name? The one that the shark, the shark in the water. That one's the one that kills.
Oh
me.
yeah, Kananga.
Yes. Oh god, that one.
I love Yaphet Kotto and I love that performance, but oh my god, was that so stupid.
Here's every opportunity to get out of here. Enjoy.
Or Carl Stromberg. All right, go through. Oh, you went through that door. Okay, go through this door.
Yeah.
You went through that too. Okay, okay. I missed with the exploded spear gun. I guess I'll just stand here to get shot then. Oh, I didn't die from the first shot? Maybe I should... Nah, I'm not gonna get up. I'm just gonna sit here. So... At least there was a fight put up, you know?
Yeah, it was crafty for being the same trope.
I'd say, like, a lot of the characters that actually have screen time in this film, sans two people, actually do a very well job. I think the role of Tibbet was pretty damn good. I think like I also noticed that there's a which I guess I will might be a thing for like Robert Brown's version of M. M has like a lot more screen time and is out in the field a little bit more, which they were kind of doing with like Bernard Lee's version with like Spy Who Loved Me and Moonraker, but a lot more prevalent in Robert Brown's tenure. He's not just some dude that's behind a desk. He's actually out in the field, at least a little bit supervising. But I think Tibbet was actually well fleshed out, and it's rather sad seeing him go. But like a lot of Bond films, it's like, one of his companions are probably going to pass away, so due to the nature of spy work. Also, despite Willoughby Gray's character of Dr. Karl Mortner being kind of a German Nazi stereotype with a monocle and all, at least it does. He's at least amusing to watch. But when it comes down to negatives, there are people that are just kind of waste space. There's a character by the name of Scarpine, who I assume is like named that because he has a scar on his face and he's Italian.
Creativity is not a Bond trope.
He is played by Patrick Bachau. I have no clue what all he's been in. I hope that he's a better actor than what he is in this performance, because it literally looks like he's just like reading off of cue cards and has very little personality and it's just monotone throughout the entire thing. And then comes down to probably one of the biggest problems of this film. Tonya Roberts as Stacy Sutton. All right. Here's the thing. I like Tonya Roberts as Midge. All right. I think that she was rather great as Midge.
It's really weird, and like as Midge, she very brilliantly plays a really dumb person. And it was so hard to see her in this movie like supposed to be a smart person. I recognize part of that might be my influence from that 70s show, but like she still just kind of felt dumb while telling you about her degrees and her education, and like genuinely being supposed to have been an intelligent force to this movie, she still just felt dumb.
And the acting isn't really that great. And I'm just like, well, thinking back, I'm like, I know she's been in a whole bunch of stuff, and actually looking back, it's like, well, Charlie's Angels. I'm like, well, Charlie's Angels probably had. But I thought back, I'm like, wait, no, 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 no. This is television from the American television from the 70s to early 80s, and if anybody knows, American television for the longest time, the acting in that was very much dog shit. So, now that's not saying that everybody that's acted in these movies didn't become like decent actors eventually, but like a lot of the acting in the television realm was way behind the way movies were. It is not to where we have nowadays where television is considered like this artistic medium. We are quite literally in a golden age of television.
Absolutely.
While back then they were in a more of a dark ages type of thing, at least in the States.
Well, and to continue that too, like even to just consider her other major roles, right? Like, so in being in Charlie's Angels, a lot of that plot, quote unquote, is like look pretty, there's action, not like
Right.
intelligent acting, right? Nobody can ever argue to me that Beastmaster was a quality source of acting, right? Like it was.
I was about to say this. Like I don't really remember. I remember it being really, really cheaply done.
Cheap isn't even it. That like it's not about quality acting. Like even her role in Beastmaster is not be a good actor or actress.
If I remember right, it's look pretty and show your boobs.
Right. It like in the other things that she's been cast in, arguably successfully, right? Like the places that she hits her strides are, being like physically attractive and committing to action. I would argue that she's done the same things in this one, but like the way that her part was written also required her to have some, intelligence and like brains to fill the role, and it's just hard to buy into.
Yeah.
Like it still
and
feels
I'm not
unintelligent.
sure if it's just because she hasn't like really like got her niche for acting yet, because like she's only been in like B movies prior to this or television, or if it's just how the character's written, or both, because like she basically is essentially ends up becoming like a damsel in distress and just is screaming like James throughout the entire thing, and becomes annoying very quick.
If I had $1 every time she did nothing and yelled James, I could probably have funded the crappy action scenes in this movie.
I try to almost compare it to like Dakota Fanning in War of the Worlds. Like Dakota Fanning's a great actress, but in War of the Worlds she just screams all the time and just gets annoying really freaking quick. And that's not even a bad movie, nor is she typically bad in it, but like after like the 80th scene of her like screaming her head off, it's like, come on,
Yeah.
And I kind of equate that with this, because it's like, if she wasn't so helpless throughout this entire thing, she probably would have been, a better character. But like her character is just written more as like a detriment. Like I mean, I was talking about like Jill St. John's character, Tiffany Case, in Diamonds Are Forever, or Miss Goodnight in The Man with the Golden Gun. Both of them seem to be like more like, pretty faces that were somewhat detriment, but they weren't nearly as obnoxious as Stacy is in this movie.
Well, and a lot of it too, like I give them credit for trying to remove some of the chauvinism, the toxic masculinity that's surrounded the Bond series, right?
Right.
And it, like, she played an integral role, right? Her not having the geology background that they bring up during the movie, like I mean, without it, like Bond wouldn't have had the information to save the day. Genuinely wouldn't have had the resources to do so. But like even like presents all this information, plays an important role. It comes to important scenes like the climax of the movie, and it's just call the good guy for help. And I don't know. It totally ruins the efforts that they made to, make her an important role.
I totally agree. Also, I like to add the thing I don't like is that with this being kind of a Goldfinger remake, there is a little bit of like a uh crossover because they didn't use anything from the short story into this besides the KGB were involved. Um and Goldfinger Bond, is investigating Goldfinger for smuggling Nazi gold and then uncovers like a bigger plot. Um but at that same time, like it's not necessarily like the overarching thing that Bond goes to investigate Goldfinger for gets buried. While in this, it kind of does. Like Bond never. It's like, what does Bond have to report when he like is investigating Zorin before he finds out that Zorin's going to flood Silicon Valley and corner the microchip market? It's like, okay, well, he's cheating on horse racing.
Right. To that point, like I actually asked during the movie last night, and Mike was like, you know what? I don't know that they've said it. Like the only reason that I got an answer to my question was because you guys have watched it before. But like it feels like Bond is unraveling the plot before they ever give you an explanation for why he's there, right?
Right.
Like it feels like Secret Service is involved in things like weapons trades, gold smuggling. Like even in Goldfinger, like there's a reason for him to be there before he uncovers the bigger picture.
Yes. And with here there is like it's like they found like his microchips with like with like in in the Russians, but it gets buried and you forget about it.
Yeah, I was gonna say even then in this one, like it's just kind of like it for the first 45 minutes to an hour of this movie, it's just like, well, he's just investigating this guy being really a cheater at gambling. Like there's not a whole lot of like
espionage.
Well, and it feels like a much smaller issue than MI6 should be handling. It just like it feels like there's no purpose to be there, and they just kind of accidentally stumble across something that should be his job. Like it feels like a stretch to believe that Bond would have been there for what you know at the beginning of the movie.
And speaking of like the KGB, I forgot to add this. Barbara Brock, who Barbara Bach, who played Agent Triple X, the love interest of in Spy Who Loved Me, was actually going to be a KGB agent in this. She declined to be in this movie, and then therefore she the role that was going to given to her is given to another actress who plays a completely new character, which I guess circles back to the KGB, but like it seems kind of a little bit when you forget that the KGB is involved in this. At times, it just seems it comes out of nowhere a little bit, even though it doesn't. It's just the movie just kind of is wonky with its storytelling.
They want you to have a Russian front to associate with the bad guys because the 80s, Cold War, America, right? Without like ever actually making the Russians any sort of problem. Like it's right. All Christopher Walken, but they give you a Russian front to be mad at.
Yes. Also, like I said before, how this ends up getting kind of undercut with the battle on top of the Golden Gate Bridge. There ends up being like a fight over like a big, huge like bundle of dynamite that Scarpede and the Nazi dude start, trying to like bumble their way to throw it out, and then the blimp explodes. But that's like an example of like a couple of things where like a lot of the action seems just like goofy and played for laughs, especially like the car chase scene, where it's like, oh, the roof of the car gets ripped off, and then the back end of the car gets ripped off, and it's like
it kind of flows into one of mine. If you don't mind me taking over, the filming, the cinematography, the direction of this film were all complete and utter garbage. Like the car getting perfectly split in half to a line, like it's a perfectly cut line. Driver's
And an
okay,
obvious stunt double.
right?
Like the stunt doubles are
Just
very obvious.
just like the effects were done so poorly, so lazily, like it almost felt like they just didn't give a shit. The camera looked like it could have been filmed in the 60s and I would have believed it. Like the regression from Octopussy to View to a Kill was so astronomical. I genuinely thought we went back in time to watch this movie. The script sucked. The acting was equally bad to match the very bad script. The sound, oh my god. Okay, I don't know if they decided to Foley artist dub over this entire movie or if they just couldn't make the soundtrack match up to the video track, but it looked like half the actors were dubbed because their voice didn't match up at the same time as their mouth moving. All of the sound effects were so bad, nothing was sound balanced, so certain things were very loud. The immediate sound following that like had the same intensity was quiet. Just everything was filmed in an echo chamber where you were hearing one sound 5 times by accident. Just like nothing about the filming of this movie was any good, and the effects just doubled down on how bad and lazy everything was. Watching this movie was genuinely difficult, not even because like of all of the places that I agreed with you, Stallman, on the plot, of all of the things that like, hey, this may not have been the best choice, like all of the content wise that were difficult, all of that can be cast aside for how bad the movie was filmed. It was so terrible. Another like big thing that I had, I probably my biggest detriment to this movie was that laziness, right? There were so many things that Octopussy did
This
well
movie
because they
is very lazily done.
I mean, we talked about it in the bonus episode that like we thought that Octopussy got a whole lot better because it had something to compete with. And it felt like once they won that Battle of the Bonds, once they got past that fight, they're just like, well, doesn't matter what we do, we're the superior franchise. And then they just didn't have to care. They didn't care about their budget. They didn't care about the filming. They didn't care about how things were scripted or how it was written. They didn't care about plot. They didn't care about how it looked to film it. It just looked so disgustingly awful.
And the worst thing about this is that if you showed someone, it's like, yeah, it's kind of like a Goldfinger remake. I mean, I know that you don't like Goldfinger, but to like the reputation that Goldfinger has, you tell someone's like, yeah, it's Goldfinger, but with like microchips. Christopher Walken's the villain. Grace Jones is like the hench lady. Midge is in it. You know, and you have John Glenn, who directed, you know, For Your Eyes. Like his first movie was For Your Eyes, For Your Eyes Only, and then followed it up with Octopussy. He was going in like an upward path, and
they set themselves up with all of the pieces to be good, and it just fell off hard. I truly, I don't know if I would think as negatively about this movie if Octopussy hadn't been the one before it, to be completely and totally honest with you.
I agree. And I told Ted this isn't going to be as good as Octopussy. I knew that for a fact.
And even if it had been like a mid-tier movie, right? At least keeping the same care and quality into it could have made this so much better. But like it's like they learned all of these things about, hey, we competed against nostalgia, we won, and now we don't have to do the things that made us successful anymore. And it watching this movie was genuinely and very thoroughly difficult. It was just disappointing to know that all of the things that they had succeeded in, they didn't want to do after one success.
And it just boils down to, I could see why Roger Moore said this was like his least favorite out of all the Bond films that he did. But spoiler alert, to me, I disagree with that statement, but I could see where he was going at, because the funniest thing was the worst critic of this movie was Roger Moore.
Obviously, like, listen, it was worse than Moonraker because Moonraker sucked so bad, but like I guess to have such a high fall into such a low from
Yeah.
Octopussy to View to a Kill has to feel worse than just a mediocre at best movie falling down to Moonraker. Like this was such a
Yeah.
significant drop off. It's got to be so difficult to
Yeah.
feel that way.
Because Roger Moore basically, was like, I was 400 years old to do the part. Sean Connery even commented on this movie. He was just like, Bond should be played by someone in their 30s. I'm too old, and Roger is too old too. And it's like, wow. Like, even Sean Connery, who was like pretty much done with Bond completely, was like, all right, I'll actually bite and watch this. Yeah, nope.
Yeah. My last detriment to this movie, although at a much smaller scale than my last point, was this movie started to feel like it dragged again.
Yes.
And
especially the first half. The second half, not so much, but like,
I knew that the first half was dragging, right? Like the exposition, it took an hour to get into the plot line.
Yes.
And
then it also dragged again within like the storeroom of Stacy's house.
Yeah, I the action scenes took longer in this one than they did in Octopussy. That like I thought those were brilliant because they lasted the perfect amount of time, and even though there were a ton of them, they lasted the right amount of time. When they stormed Stacy's house, like it took a long time, but it wasn't atrocious, right? Even the scene on the Golden Gate Bridge that I thought was maybe too choreographed, like maybe not perfect, even though that was a long scene, it didn't feel like that scene by itself dragged, right? Like to just watch it, a YouTube highlight that's 18 minutes long of just that scene, so be it. Like it didn't feel egregious. Yeah. I'm guessing that it's the first half of the movie being filled with exactly fucking nothing that made it feel by the end of this like, thank God this was 7 hours long,
Yeah.
By the end of the movie, I was definitely happy it was over because like it felt like I had been sitting there far too long. Despite the runtime not being as long as some of the other ones we've watched, it definitely, by the end of it, even with a good scene to end it, just kind of...
Yeah. I will say this, I will give this to Roger Moore, though. And since this is the last film with Roger Moore, we will, talk about, like, his tenure, and also... I think first we'll talk about Lois Maxwell as Moneypenny. Like, how do you feel kind of about it?
I didn't think she got a whole lot of like major pieces, especially through Roger Moore. I mean, I felt like her character was being better developed through Connery. She had a couple of moments that were notable through Roger Moore, but I mean, they really detracted from her character as the movies went on.
I think the main issue is that her and Roger Moore were actually like really good friends in real life, and I guess them flirting with each other was just awkward for the actors, so they just kind of,
it also struck me that like, it was potentially that like maybe it was the age of both of them. I mean, as much fun as we made of Roger Moore looking, decrepit in the last movie, even, I mean, she looked like she's put on the years that she has spent,
right,
being aside Bond and M. I also think too that like at some point they recognized people aren't here for Moneypenny, and so they kind of lessened her roles as time went on. I mean,
which is a shame because she is super great and like in the scenes that she's in. Like,
I recognize that like that kind of character might be better in a novel setting, just to like add romantic suspense, I guess, that like, hey, maybe there's the chance he settles down, kind of thing. Like I recognize that her role would be better in a novel than it would be in these films. By the time that we rolled around to the 80s, people went to Bond to be an action film, not to wonder what happens to Bond and Moneypenny. Like this is a a soap opera kind of thing. I recognize why that may not have been the most attractive selling point to create a feature film, but I guess like as her time ends with Bond, that like they kind of lessened her necessity to make it as significant as moving on to another Bond character.
Right. And with that, I mean, I agree. Like, I think like sometimes it's even like some of like her like character like development is like different, because at first it's like under the Connery things, it's like, yeah, they kind of had like a fling, and then they kind of, but they decide to remain friends. But it seems like after like on Her Majesty's Secret Service, she ends up acting like a lady in waiting, and then in the first couple of like Roger Moore films, it was like she's like uh a wingman of sorts. And then she goes back to being kind of like a lady in waiting, and I'm not really a fan of her being of the character Moneypenny being a lady in waiting.
Yeah,
You know,
I'd agree with that. Like I said,
like
it might be different through reading the novels, the source material, and all that. But I do agree with you that they definitely put her character in a bunch of different places compared to Bond. That it wasn't necessarily development, just hey, where does she fit into this script?
right. Now we're going into Roger Moore, and I have to say that despite us being critical of the of like a lot of the movies in the Roger Moore series, we haven't really been that critical of Roger Moore himself, and I think that really shows like a how, I wouldn't say like great of an actor of he is, but how dedicated he is to the role. Because unlike Connery, who like phoned it in, like, you know, during like his last 3 Bond films, Roger Moore gave it 110% as like we went, and even in this film, actually did a stunt. He before he was a actor, he was a truck driver, and when one of the stuntmen didn't show up for
The fire truck scene.
the fire truck scene, he actually was driving the fire truck. He's like, I can do it.
You know, I guess with Connery, like you definitely watched his enthusiasm for the role die. And like, while you know, we can know that like Roger Moore found reasons to not want to be Bond anymore, whether it was, you know, age, ability to fit the role, quality of movie here at the end. Like even with all those things, like I don't think there was a question about Roger Moore's portrayal of Bond. Like I agree with you that like despite some of the movies made around him being very, very poor, I think he did a very good job as Bond even in the poorer movies. He always filled the role, he did his job, and I thought this was very successful, notably better than Connery.
Yeah, he also had like a lot of fun on these films. As one of my friends was viewed as, he goes, yeah, during catering, people would hate it if there was a soda fountain, because like Roger Moore, who is known as the funny Bond, obviously was pulled pranks on set by like spraying people with the soda machine. So um it's nice to know that there's actually someone that actually is in the role and loves the role and really shows like the dedication with it. I also like that Roger Moore was like his own Bond and like went into the role. Like it wasn't like it took like a couple of like movies for him to get into the role. He was in the role, like got into the role like right away and Live and Let Die.
Absolutely.
I think I also like how like he's a little bit, he's more suave than Connery. Like Connery has a lot more swagger, but like Moore is a lot more of like, has more of like a suave personality, and is also like for the most part not rapey.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I liked the way that the Bond character developed around Roger Moore's morals. I mean, we talked about it a few episodes ago that, like, you know, he really didn't like the scene about having to strike a woman, right? Like, I appreciate the fact that they wrote that portion of it out of his character. And, you know, I guess, like, feeling like his own Bond doesn't necessarily strike me differently. Like, maybe with more Bonds, you know, moving forward, like, you'll get more of a sense of what Roger Moore meant to the character, but, yeah, definitely less clunky than Connery. It was smooth. Everything felt like it fit together, and it was one wholesome piece of character. Not sometimes he's witty, sometimes he's an action star, sometimes everything flowed together. He felt like one character.
That made sense. I honestly, here's the funny thing, and this is kind of blasphemy. Well, actually, not really blasphemy, because there is kind of like a battle, like who's better, Roger Moore or Sean Connery. I used to be on the Connery side, but like rewatching these, I think I'm with Roger Moore on that. Like,
Yeah, to this point, I have to agree. Yeah, again, part of it's the the times that they were made and the ways I
right,
feel about certain characters, but even having gripes with like I think if you're going to even them out, right? Like all of the movies
right.
compared to all of the movies, I think Connery's movies were better than Roger Moore's.
Absolutely.
But still, I feel that Roger Moore was a better portrayal of Bond, which should really speak to how well I thought he fit the role.
Yes. Yes, because he was, no matter how terrible of a movie it was, such as Moonraker, he was at least the light shining at the end of the tunnel. At least Roger Moore was good.
Fair.
um,
So I guess all we've got left for this one is rankings, right?
yeah.
Okay.
You want to go first? Or you want me to go first?
I think you've gone first the past couple, so I can take it.
Yeah. All right.
I have I put this one closer to the bottom, but not all the way there. I have View to a Kill at number 12, between For Your Eyes Only and Diamonds Are Forever. I tried to be impartial about this one, considering this is a movie by itself and not as a comparison to Octopussy being immediately before it.
Right.
But it became increasingly difficult because there were so many places that I didn't like the plot. There were obviously gripes with the quality of movie itself, and I just the laziness it made it very hard for me to put it any higher than that.
Yeah, I mean, I have it somewhat almost in the same spot. I have it mine at a number 11, Between You Only Live Twice and Never Say Never Again. I kind of equate this a little bit as like Never Say Never Again, as in like how the story is, how like the plot and story is kind of all a mess and all over the place. But I found myself more entertained by A View to a Kill due to like Christopher Walken and Grace Jones and like a lot of quirkiness that's in this movie.
That's fair.
So that's why I have it above Never Say Never Again.
Yeah. This was a tough one because I thought all of the pieces were there for it to succeed. I mean, it could have been a very thorough plot. There was really good acting, good actors and actresses, obviously. Like, all of the pieces were there for it to be good, and it just left me feeling let down. And I think that's why mine's probably a little lower than yours, to be honest.
Right. That honestly, yeah, because I mean, I was let down because I was like, it's weird, and it's like, it's great fun. And when I'm watching it, I'm just like, I can see why I thought about that, and that's because I blocked out a lot of the negatives.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, but anyway, to wrap this all up, next week we are going to be watching and reviewing the first Timothy Dalton Bond film with The Living Daylights, and the next two movies, well, actually the next three movies, because we got the two with Timothy Dalton, and then we got GoldenEye with Pierce Brosnan. I'm definitely fucking stoked and excited for, because I really love Timothy Dalton as Bond, and I also really like the movie GoldenEye, because that's what got me into James Bond, so interesting to see how your takes are going to be on those movies.
Yeah, looking forward to it. In the meantime, I think we're wrapped up with this one, so thanks for watching. As every week, you can continue to hop in the Discord, links below, so you can watch movies with us on Tuesday. Movies are a little ahead of where the podcasts are coming out, so don't expect necessarily to
We're
this Tuesday and see Timothy Dalton. I think, what are we, 5 weeks ahead, 4 weeks ahead?
I think we're 4 weeks ahead. We're 4 weeks ahead because we took the 1 week off.
Yeah, but
so
significantly ahead. If you're
so
watching
we
this,
are in the Brosnan era right now.
By the time you
Tomorrow
see this,
Never Dies. That's what we would be watching.
Anyway, be sure to catch us in the Discord for gaming content, videos, movies, community events, all kinds of stuff like that. Check us both out on Twitch, myself at Ted Green Eagles and Stallman at Traductus. Both those will be posted in the description below. Otherwise, I think that's it. So, thanks for watching.
Yeah, see ya.